Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. I work with a small nonprofit organization, Power Up Gambia, and I just want to describe a little bit about what we do, why we're involved, and what we've been able to accomplish with the work of basically just a few people on staff and mostly volunteers, and a great deal of them being students. When you look at the world, and people have probably seen this map before, a composite map that shows basically where power is in the world. We've talked about political power, we've talked about other type of power, but I'm talking about, actual physical power, electricity, our lights, things that we do. When you look at the United States, Europe, and everything, at nighttime you can see how much power we have. It drives our society, it drives commerce, business, but for huge portions of the world, they don't have that access to power. When you look at sub-Saharan Africa, which is the area that I work in, there are more people there who have no access to electricity than there are the entire population of the United States. And in fact, sub-Saharan Africa is basically the same size as the United States. You compare the two, what we have in resources, what they don't have in resources, and you can see just very basic, very graphically what the differences in resources are. Now, why does that matter in all areas? Well, it matters in communications, it matters in commerce. The area we focus in is the matter of health. When you're in the United States, if you have to go to a hospital, you expect that you'll receive treatment there and the people will be able to run lab tests. They'll be able to provide you with oxygen support, life support. They'll be able to help you. That's not always the case when you go into hospitals, major clinics in developing countries, because they often don't have access to electricity. They might have on-site generators. Generators break down. Fuel is difficult to get. Fuel is very expensive to get. Many places throughout the world don't have the electrical grid that we have. So when somebody comes in and is suffering, there's oftentimes not a lot that even the trained nursing staff can do. You can't put somebody on oxygen if you don't have oxygen. You can't give a woman who's giving birth if she's hemorrhaging. You can't give her a blood transfusion if there's no blood in the blood bank. You can't keep a blood bank because there is no refrigeration. An infant born late at night, needing incubation, needing oxygen, can't receive it. In fact, the nurses have to basically try to do their work by candlelight and flashlight. And it's just incredibly difficult for the families, the patients, the families, and the nursing staff to see the suffering going on, knowing that they can have the generator running, but when the generator runs out of fuel, if somebody's on life support, that life can end. And it's happened when I've been in the hospitals. You hear the generators running. You hear them running. You know there's people on life support. There's infants that are on life support. And you hear the generator start to sputter. And then you hear it shut down. And it's dead silent. And everybody knows what's about to happen. And there's nothing you can do about it. But you can do something about it. And we're involved in the Gambia. I have to put this up because most of the time I say the Gambia and people are like, where? Zambia? They don't know where it is. It's a small country, former British colony, goes up along the Gambia River. It's actually inside the country of Senegal in West Africa. Now, how did we get involved in the Gambia? We got involved by a young college student. University of Pennsylvania, she finished up her sophomore year. She wanted to do something a little bit different. She was interested in maybe applying for medical school later on, so she figured, good resume building or something like that is volunteer and go out and work in West Africa. She was assigned, she joined Operation Crossroads Africa. She was assigned to a hospital, Suleiman Junkin General Hospital, Buyam, in the Gambia. And her work there was very transformational for her life. She found the staff very dedicated, very committed to their patients, hardworking. but suffering from a lack of resources and really struggling to make a difference. A woman came in who was in terrible trouble. She needed transfusion, no blood bank because the generators were down, no refrigeration. Catherine donated blood at the spot. They basically can only do transfusions if somebody is right there at the spot who can donate blood. And Catherine started to realize when she was going to leave that she couldn't just leave the community behind. She had become part of the community. And she realized that, the hospital she was leaving is servicing the young girls here, the other people in the community who she had become very close to, good friends with. And, she didn't know what to do about that. But the CEO of the hospital had a plan in mind because he knew what his hospital needed. He said basically he couldn't keep the generators going. He couldn't afford to keep the generators going, but he knew that the Gambia has lots of sun, lots of potential for solar power. And he had been wanting for a long time to put solar power project in the Gambia in his hospital. He was telling me, when I saw Catherine and she came and worked with us, I knew I had found the catalyst, the person I had been looking for who could make this happen. And Catherine really realized that by working with the community, she didn't know what she was going to do, but Keba Baji, the CEO of the hospital, challenged her to raise money back in the United States to power the hospital. And she knew, this might not happen, but she had to do something. If she wanted to really make a commitment to the friends, the families, the staff that she had worked with, she had to try. She wasn't sure what the result would be, but she had to try something. So she followed a path that many of the other people here have talked about following. If you're going to launch yourself in a project like this where you're trying to make a difference in the world, you can't just step out there on your own. So she really followed the steps that so many of other successful people have followed, turning to mentors to help her guide her steps for making this project happen, getting like-minded supporters, and listening to critics, basically critiquing what the project is so that she could understand a better way to do it. And the great thing about what we have available today in communication, internet, access, everybody in the world has mobile phones. Most people in the world have access, one way or the other, to internet. I sent these slides from the Gambia just a few days ago, and it took me a while to find an internet cafe that I could send it through, but it's there. So Catherine, when she was looking for mentors, looking for people who could help her design and put this project together, didn't have to just talk to people in her own community. She could continue the conversation with people in the Gambia, these gentlemen who were elders in their community. And the elders in the community could weigh in at an equal level to anybody in the United States on how the project should run. And this is a critical difference I think we're seeing now in developing projects. It's no longer people coming from developed countries and we come in and we do a project and then we leave. It's a collaborative process where we're basically in communication the whole time as to how things should be done and the right way to do it. So she got guidance from people from all around the world, and particularly people from the community that she was going to be working in. She found like-minded supporters, basically talked to everybody and anybody. And students came together and said, we can help you raise the funds. We can make this possible. And worked very hard to do that. But she also got a lot of people who were critics, saying it's too expensive a project, high technology like this is never going to work, and da-da-da-da. And she listened to those people too, because critics are very, very important if you're doing any type of development work, if you're doing any type of project, it's the critics who help you focus, help you really understand where you're going and what you're doing. And they are vital to your success. You need 4 things to accomplish a project like this. And Catherine had them all. Passion. You have to have a passion for what you're doing, a commitment. You can't just dash in and dash out. It has to be a long-term commitment. Communication is vital. Open up your ears. Listen to what everybody has to say, your supporters, your critics, your mentors, and have an open mind on how it's going to evolve. You know, if I had met Catherine earlier, I would have been one of the critics. I would have, having worked in development overseas, I would have said, this kind of project is just not going to work. A young 20-year-old something trying to put in a solar power project at a hospital, it's just too complicated. You should try something simpler. She basically stayed focused, stayed committed, tapped all of the resources she could, and she put in a 12-kilowatt system. I was just there the other day. They had surgery going. They had 5 women in the labor ward. The generator was dead, once again. Generators die frequently. But the hospital was up and running, totally on solar power. It's an 11.5-kilowatt system. We put it in at Suleiman Junction. We're going to be putting another one in at Bansang Hospital. And I think this is a model that is just exploding all over Africa and a lot of developing countries. Technology is no longer held by us and doled out to other people around the world. Technology is something that people around the world are embracing and we're using in communication with each other and supporting each other's lives. They may never see in the Gambia or for much of Africa the power lines that we see here, because they might just jump straight to another model. People don't have landlines, everybody has mobiles. It may well be people aren't going to see power lines going miles and miles across the country because every area is going to have their own little solar power installation. This is all possible. And this is something that you can do, anybody can do. Passion, commitment, communication, reaching out to everybody who could possibly help you, having an open mind, listening to criticisms, and building your projects. This was done by a 22-year-old girl. She's saving lives every day because she saw the need. Other people talked to her about it. And she said, we can do this. And it's quite doable. So I just want to basically show this as an example of what people can do when you are out working in your community and you focus on something that you're very passionate about and you have a commitment for. It's incredible what's obtainable. You might not know the results of what you're going to achieve when you start out, but you start out and you move forward and it'll make an incredible difference. So thank you very much.